right, let's move on to a team that also in the AFC West. And honestly, they actually have a little bit more of appeal because of how bad and how much of an open slate they are. That's the Raiders, who went 3-14, fired Pete Carroll after a terrible season. I mean, objectively terrible season. We had several articles come out about how dysfunctional it all was, mixed messaging. You got Spytech, the GM, meeting with players about scheme stuff, which is like, all right, if you want to meet with players and talk scheme, why don't you coach? You know, you don't get to do both. Like you don't want the coaches pick players, and then like you can't be a personnel guy. And Allison, this is what freaking would tick me off about Trent Baalke. It's like you try to coach players at practice, and I'm like, dude, then coach. Just be a coach then. Like, if you want to do that, be a coach. Sorry. But they got $98 million in cap space. They're third. They got the number 1 pick, Fernando Mendoza, 2 extra 4th rounders. If you're comfortable with Tom Brady having a hand in anything and Spytech meeting with the players, there's a lot of open stuff here. But to you, Matt, what's kind of the appeal, the biggest selling point of being the Raiders head coach?
Hey, you said it. Blank slate is how I feel about this team right now. You're going to get you got the number 1 pick. You're going to take a quarterback there. You've got some. I would almost pitch this if I'm Spytech. I'd be saying, hey, you're going to get 2 draft classes here, because not only are you going to get to draft, we're going to draft some players for you this year. You basically got a whole class of guys last year that the coaching staff either just completely ignored, didn't use, or didn't get the best out of. So you're about to get basically 2 draft classes here. Well, it's partly about Jack Besh, but it's also about some of the offensive linemen that they really never gave a chance to.
Yeah.
We could also say that they did not get the best out of Ashton Genty. That's kind of the other part there, is that they certainly, which, listen, maybe you don't take a running back 6th overall when you're not ready to be a good team. In fact, you were the worst team in the NFL. You're picking first in the NFL draft. So, yeah, I think that's would be sort of my selling point here, is that, and you know, this is how teams work, like especially a general manager who gets to keep their job, who I don't think is going to have what happened to Mike Vrabel or with the Patriots last year, where Elliott Wolf in his combine pressers was saying, hey, we had some guys on the roster that, you know, we just didn't get used last year. And then Mike Vrabel gets in there and says, okay, thanks, that's cute. I'm going to get my own players. I don't think you'll get a coach to that degree.
Trade.
Don't care. I don't think you'll get a head coach like that, because the arranged marriage with Pete Carroll was so poor and it just didn't make any sense. I actually kind of like some of the guys that they're interviewing. It's the 2 Rams guys, Scalise, Mike LaFleur. They're both rumored to talk to them. Davis Webb, another young offensive guy, Clint Kubiak. They've got some defensive guys in here too. Minter's talking to everybody. Anthony Weaver's talking to them, I believe. Vance Joseph is talking to them too. So they've got Jeff Hafley as well. So they don't have to go offense, but if they do, I think that this offense could maybe not be good in a hurry. If your boy Fernando Mendoza is good, that obviously is the biggest selling point here and the biggest needle mover. But there are some pieces that if they can get a quarterback in place here, I think this offense could at least be functional in the first year of a new head coach.
That's kind of how my notes went, Matt. Like, I actually was looking at it. I'm like, I don't know, man. You can work a little bit with this. I described the defense as a fun fixer-upper. Like it's a house listing. This is a fun fixer-upper. You got Max Crosby. I like Jonah Laialu. And it's like, it's a fun fixer-upper, you know, for anyone interested.
Yeah.
But the offense, man, Ashton Genty, who did have moments. That's the thing. It was such a lost year, but it was like when he did flash, it was like, oh, yeah, that's why you're awesome. Brock Bowers, Trey Tucker. Trey Tucker might actually be my boy. But Trey Tucker, Jack Besh, and Michael Mayer, you get one more real receiver, as I'll put it, like a big receiver. Again, Romeo Doubs, Alec Pierce. That looks way more appetizing to me. Like they actually, like, I actually like that group of skill position. Like you said, they need to figure out the O-line. There is a big thinking, football theory, I guess is a good way to put it, where, you know, going from poor to just average is a big jump, you know, and not just with personnel, but with coaching. And I think, honestly, that was one of the worst coached units in the league last year. And it was, you know, it was the case of nepotism. I'll be frank about it. And that was probably the crux of a lot of the issues was, and you could tell how there was a ton of, lack of detail. You could tell the lack of preparation, guys not on the same page on basic plays, running into bad boxes. Just everything was a mess. Everything was a mess. And they're moving offensive linemen around left and right. And that's come out in articles. I believe ESPN had an article I want to say it was Kalen wrote that, but someone's touched on it. So sorry, I'm not sourcing it correctly, but they were just talking about like, oh, these guys were moving spots right before the season started. This guy was never had any snaps at center for years, and all of a sudden he's our center. And it's like, just getting these guys heads straight. There's some talent here. It's not great, but it's not as bad as it looked. It should have been more like the 22nd offensive line, not the worst in the league. And I think that you can get, if you just get a good coach in there, like really honestly nailing the O-line coach might help out so much with this team. But you got the number one pick, you got a quarterback, the owner's insane. Like, you have to know that, but you're hoping Tom Brady kind of brings some normalcy there. And I think Tom Brady's got a little bit of a fire to kind of make this better, because Tom Brady has a lot of pride. I mean, that's why he's improved as a commentator, is because he has a lot of pride in what he does. That's why he's great at everything he touches. So I think that there's going to be some like, oh, okay, this is embarrassing for me. My name's on it. All right, I'm going to help fix this out. That could be bad, but I think it is good overall. But why I'm saying all that is, if you look at the candidates, they interviewed Evero. So there's interviews and requested interviews. So Evero, Matt Nagy, Kevin Stefanski, which I actually think this would be an interesting fit here. Vance Joseph, Davis Webb, you mentioned, Mike LaFleur, Clint Kubiak, Jesse Minter, and Jeff Halfway, defensive coordinator for the Packers. To me, this is the one that I would go offensive guy. I would really try and groom and build from day one with a quarterback with an offensive play caller and go from there. And I think Mendoza could have, if you get another lineman, one more pass catcher, have a decent, and the defense can come in time. You're not going to win next year. But if you get to that, like, just, okay, tangibly interesting, like, that's why I think is appealing. The pressure shouldn't be there unless Mark Davis is just out of his mind, which he is half the time. So it is that I look at this team and I'm just looking at it. I'm like, man, that's more appealing than you would think. I think that's how I've looked at it. And then now pay the staff and the coaches way more than they have in the past. The Raiders in the past have been one of the cheapest teams as far as how they pay their head coach and their assistants. And I think that now they got all this money, the VC money in there, that's going to help them kind of like boost their staff and everything. It could be more respectable if they get the right guy. Again, I would lean to Stefanski. I'm not the most original thinker in the world about this stuff, but that's a guy that actually makes a little bit of sense to me, because I think he can bring a high floor offense with Mendoza, and I think that's a great fit as far as play caller and quarterback. So that's all I'm looking at right there. All right. Any closing thoughts on the Raiders?
I would agree with you that it's an offense one for me here is what I'd go with, and I'd be open to even a first timer. I like the Stefanski suggestion, but even if you get creative with one of those guys, I mean, maybe Clint Kubiak obviously I think would be interesting. I don't know. I don't know if he has. I've heard people say he doesn't have like the personality for a head coach, but I mean, listen, if you're good, you'll grow into it. I wouldn't say that every head coach. I've never heard anything personality in the world, positive or negative, about him as a head coach. Like Brian Schottenheimer was one of those guys. I'm just using the Nepo guys. But Brian Schottenheimer was always said, like, this guy might be a better head coach than a play caller. And I've heard that from 15 people over the years. And everyone said that. And now I'm like, okay, you guys were right. I actually agree with that. Yeah. I think he's actually going to be a pretty good head coach. So I think they can get creative with it too. Like, I really do. Like, I think Mendoza too, the Shanahan Kubiak guys are going to love Mendoza. Like, his skill set really is appealing to that type of offensive system, which Stefanski has a little bit of, but his offense is kind of a hybrid. There's some Peyton in there. There's a little bit of everything in his offense, but those guys are like Kubiak and Mendoza could be an interesting fit. Who's the other one? Oh, Mike LaFleur, who's the OC for the Rams. That could be an interesting fit if you really want to go out left field, all that stuff. But all right, we're going to take our first break. Before we do that, check us out on the Yahoo Sports Network, available on leading fast services or on yahoosports.tv.